It's an opportunity to talk to y'all, and I want to thank y'all for being here today. I really appreciate it. But what we wanted to do was have an opportunity to talk to you and have some of our folks here today to speak about what is really an innovative project down in downtown Forest Lawn. And it's one that has more partners in it than we've ever worked with before. And it's really kind of exciting. So I'm just here to set the stage a little bit for what this initiative is, and then the experts are actually going to talk about it. But what we're hoping is that it'll set the stage for when we have the rollout tomorrow. There'll be a better understanding with you all about exactly what this initiative is all about and what we hope to accomplish. So I'm just going to set a little bit of the stage for our project. It's called ISSP, and it's also merged with the International Beat Team Initiative. And what it's all about, in its simplest form, is this. We had great success rolling out the beats downtown. Huge success. People have forgotten what it was like 7 years ago in downtown Calgary. There was a real feeling that people weren't safe. Open-air drug markets existed everywhere. The violence, the shootings in broad daylight downtown. You've all got the facts. I don't think there's people in Calgary more familiar than you are with what downtown looked like back in the day. And then we rolled out the beats. And it was hugely successful. And then we started looking at other areas of the city, and we looked at Forest Lawn. Forest Lawn is an area that has its own particular challenges. And we have been working with Alderman Chabot for years in regard to those particular issues. We've been working with the community. And then, as a result of support from City Council and growth positions that were part of our last 3-year business plan, we were able to do something that was really cool. And that was roll out foot patrols, 16 officers, I believe, on foot patrol around International Avenue with a number of purposes in mind. Number one, we wanted to make that community safe for the business people and the residents that live there. Number two, we recognize that that particular area is one of the most diverse communities that we have in Calgary. And we need to do a better job in connecting with families, and especially with kids that come from diverse backgrounds. I mean, many of these kids that we deal with, many of the families that we deal with today are families and kids that have come from countries and environments where the police are the enemy. The police are the bad guys. The police are just bad guys in uniforms. That's all they are. So you come to a country like Canada, you come to a place like Calgary, and you are not used to dealing with a police service that is an arm of the community, not an arm of the state, not the repressive arm of the state, or an extension of organized crime, as it is in some countries. So as we started talking about the beats, rolling out the beats in Forest Lawn and securing that community in a way that provides a level of comfort and safety for everyone in that community, except the bad guys. Then we had one of our teachers. We had 3 teachers seconded to CPS from the school boards that were helping us work with our Start Smart, Stay Safe initiative and helping us with MAST. And one of them, who you're going to meet later today, said, well, what would happen if you took these programs, MAST, you took S4, and you put them in a couple of schools? What would happen if you supported those schools with a full-time phys ed teacher in each school? What would happen if each school had a full-time psychologist? What would happen if you had after-school care? What would happen if you had a nutrition program? And it goes on and on and on and on. I don't want to take away the thunder from the presentation that's about to come. But what would happen if you merged those kinds of support services into a community that's so diverse, with so many challenges with the kids, so many different languages spoken, so many issues in regard to building trust with families in those communities? What if you merged those two initiatives, the BEATS and what we call ISSP? integrated school support project. But at the time when we started, we stood alone with just an idea or a concept, and that was just last January. And in a remarkably brief period of time, this initiative came together with partnerships that included the provincial government, who agreed to fund the social worker for the MASS team, with the City of Calgary, who was going to provide the social worker funded by the provincial government. So that's Community Neighborhood Services supplied the social worker to work with our police officer on the MASS team. Support from the Library Board, support from Parks and Rec, support from agencies like the YMCA, support from bylaws, support from a multitude of different agencies that came together and said, you know, this makes too much sense. Bringing the services not just to the community, but to the two schools who have kids and families who have particular needs, but always access to those needs was incumbent upon the individual finding that service as opposed to having those services focused in those schools. What would happen if you took our diversity relations unit and got them involved with volunteers from the diverse communities to go talk to the members take volunteers from the diverse communities to assist in connecting to the families so that they know they can trust the police and that these services are there and they can access these services. Building trust, building comfort, building a model of policing that secures a community in a way that meets the needs of the community itself. And you know, we look at what happens in the US and other countries, and if anybody ignored what was happening in Missouri last month, then you're just dumb, because it reflects a bigger issue in the US, which is marginalized communities. And how do the police connect with communities that don't feel connected to the police? Because if you as a police service cannot connect to those communities, you don't have trust, then everything else starts to break down. So what this is a fantastic plan that has fantastic partners, that has been well coordinated, created with the support of both school boards, who are amazing to deal with, and the multitude of partners that you're going to hear about later today. So tomorrow when we have the rollout, and there's going to be speakers there, the mayor's going to be there, Manmeet Bueller's going to be there, we're going to have both chief superintendents are going to be there, we're going to have the city manager, Jeff Fielding, because of the number of partners. We thought there's no possible way we could do justice to this initiative tomorrow at that media availability as we roll this out to the two schools. So Kevin Brookwell said, you know, the best way to approach this is to have the opportunity to talk to you so that you can hear firsthand what it is we're doing and ask questions, so that you can decide what it is you want to focus on tomorrow, if you indeed decide to focus on anything tomorrow when we roll this initiative out. But I think that once you see the partnerships, where the focus is, what the focus is, I think you'll have to agree that you will have to look long and hard, and I challenge you to do that, to find anything that remotely resembles this initiative anywhere. And I'm happy saying anywhere. Bits and pieces exist everywhere. But pulling all these parts together for the benefit of kids that were they're English language learners, where it's just the right place at the right time for us, and the opportunity is incredible. And I just want the foundation of all this is something that we've been trying to apply in this police service for a few years now, and it's this. The greatest impact you're ever going to have with kids is intervention or influence in the elementary school years, prior to them leaving elementary school. That's when you have the greatest opportunity to educate them as to risks that they're going to face into the future, to identify those challenges, those kids that are facing challenges that need to be addressed, and to provide the resources to them that are going to allow them to steer themselves in a direction that will keep them out of trouble down the road. And as all you know, there's never been more challenges in every way, shape, or form, from gangs to radicalization of our youth, to drug addiction, mental health issues. Intervention, earliest time possible, greatest likelihood of success for the kids who grow into productive adults and adults that have a chance, and the families themselves. If it's predictable, it's preventable. You can predict it by looking at the kids and determine where the greatest need is. So rather than me continue on, there's the experts that are here to talk about their particular part. I'm going to stick around because if there's any questions asked afterwards, I'm sure between all of us here we'll be able to answer that. But I really appreciate you being here, because this is really something that's not only exciting, but I think each and every one of you, if you're the ones that are at that event tomorrow, take the opportunity to just talk to maybe the family members that are there, the kids that are there, have a look around. And if it doesn't do something in here for you, then you know what? We've got a doctor upstairs and we'll do the transplant. So anyhow, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to coordinate the rest of this thing, and I'm just going to take a seat in the back just to watch things as they unfold. Thank you. You go ahead.
And like Chief Hansen was saying, we were very lucky in District 4 to have the opportunity to be part of this big collaborative effort, and our small part, I guess, is the International Avenue Beat team. And it started boots on the ground on July 2nd this year, and I think there was a lot of you present for our kind of grand unveiling at that point. But I just wanted to reiterate a little bit of the things that we had done in District 4 prior to the International Avenue Beat team's initiation. And so during May and June, what we did was we did some covert policing where we focused on the drug trade, the sex worker trade along 17th Avenue. At the end of that, we laid 141 charges, trying to shut down the drug houses to let the people, the criminals, know that we're coming. And then at the end of June, we worked with a lot of the city departments. So we worked with waste management, bylaw, Parks and Rec, and we did a giant community cleanup. It was incredibly successful. We had a lot of buy-in from the BRZ representatives. They worked with us to talk to the businesses and stuff ahead of time. And so by the time that July 2nd happened and we had the boots on the ground, the avenue was kind of ready to go. And so from that point, we have been working diligently to not only combat crime in the area, but to liaise with the communities, the businesses, and most recently in the schools now that they're open. So what I wanted to do was introduce Sergeant Hetker. He's the sergeant for the International Avenue Beat team, and he's going to give you a little bit of information on what's happened in the last 2 months that they've had boots on the ground. And then we have Constable Collier, who actually is one of the Beat team members that has some actual stories for you guys that might be beneficial in the future. So I'll leave it to Phil Hetker.
Hi there, yeah, I'm Sergeant Phil Hetker, so I'm the sergeant for the Beat team in District 4. For about the past 10 weeks now, we've had the 16 members out actually walking along the International Avenue corridor, as well as kind of either side of it. It's been excellent just being face-to-face with the businesses and with the people in the community. As you can probably see in one of the slides there, we've been quite busy with things like traffic enforcement, criminal code charges, but more importantly, it's just been neat how we've been face-to-face with people. So walking down the street and you'll have a business owner walk up to you, or you walk up to a business owner, and they'll talk to us about stuff they wouldn't take the time to pick up the phone, call dispatch, have police officers come out for. Just this person's kind of walking down the street drunk, or this person's bugging me, or I'm having issues with whatever, garbage in the community. It may not even be specifically a police issue, but it's something that we can connect. As Staff Sergeant Barber said, we can connect with other city departments, bylaw services, transit. We can work together with them to solve whatever these people's concerns are. We've had tremendous success with, again, just in the short time frame, but with referring to some of the people we work with to things like SOURCE or other community initiatives, or rehab programs, get them the help that they need. That obviously we're just kind of the first step in that. We can connect them with different agencies that obviously have the expertise to help these people. We've had Lots of on view, walking past a shop just as a shoplifting's occurring that maybe somebody wouldn't take the time to call us for, but we can be right there to solve it. On one of the slides there, you'll see there was a shoplifting occurring at one of the grocery stores on 17th Avenue. We were able to, the easy part, I guess, is solve the shoplifting, get the property back to the store owner, but more importantly, get that person into a long-term rehab program, get them, shoplifting occurred because of some drug and alcohol issues, I guess. And so to get that person into a long-term program obviously gets us towards our goal of decreasing crime in the long term and preventing it. So and you'll see a number of great pictures in the slides and stuff as well. And Constable Collier has some good stories as well about just working with the community, working with the youth and the businesses in the area. So I'll turn it over to Constable Collier. Sorry?
Can we ask questions before you leave?
Is that okay? Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to know how you've been treated there, and has it changed? What's been the reaction from people to you, and has it grown or progressed in any way, shape, or form? And a personal recollection that might have surprised you.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Even to take the step that the bad guys out there are kind of happy we're there, and sometimes. The business owners love it. They walk up to us and say, it's great to have you here. We've noticed a decrease in, whatever it is, whether it's drunks or homeless people or whatever their concern might be. The business owners love it. The community members love it. We've had a number of interactions with kids walking down the avenue or, behind the businesses and that kind of stuff. And it's been awesome. Everybody, with the very odd exception, everybody loves it. So.
I guess I wonder. Sorry.
I was just going to follow up. Anything that surprised you about your experience so far?
Rather than surprise, it's a good feeling. It doesn't surprise me that people are happy to see us there. I've worked in the community for several years, but the nice thing is that it's increased. There's more of us out there, and we're more face-to-face every day. So it just increases every day how much we have those interactions and have people saying thank you and can you help me with this or whatever. So.
Is there any concern that this effort could push some of this criminal activity into other parts of town? Like, I think it's called the toothpaste tube effect.
Yeah.
Maybe it might be too early to really know that, but are there concerns that that's what could happen?
Well, we're certainly going to make sure that we address whatever those concerns might be, but certainly within the avenue and within the couple blocks around there, we're trying to prevent it before it even happens. So if this is just my thought, but if we can prevent it before it happens, there's less concern about pushing it somewhere else. So
if this was a normal, not a media availability, and it was one of our old media liaison meetings, we'd all be, sitting in a circle talking. So if everybody's okay, do you mind if I?
Absolutely.
I have a real vested interest. Your question is fantastic. It's a really good question, and that is the one about how it's changed. And I have to reference last spring in June when we went to the two schools just after the beach rolled out, and we went to Holy Trinity, and then we went to Pastor Durley, and one of the teachers said that, I did a component on the S4 about trusted adults it's a component that starts Smart Stay Safe, which is a curriculum-based thing. She did the part to the grade 6s, and so as she was delivering it to the grade 6 class, they go, who's our trusted adults, who would you trust? And the whole class of grade 6s, she says, well, how about a police officer? And the whole class said, no way, they don't trust, they see a cop, they work. And I said, made a comment about, that's pretty sad. And the ECS teacher says, the kindergarten teacher says, well, it's the same in my class. And yet, since you guys have been doing the beats, first week, the kids come to me. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been cool, and Constable Collier can elaborate on that too. But going to the schools and going to interact with the kids. I mean, well, just one personal example is playing on the soccer field. There'll be 2-3 kids playing on the soccer field, and I went out to play, which was a bad decision on my part because they're all better than me. But slowly, more and more kids came, and then there was like probably 100 kids on the soccer field trying to play soccer with one soccer ball. So, it took a few days, but that's actually, I think, quite quick. They really did warm up to us quickly. We've had parents coming up to us too saying, this is, well, with their kid, this is the person you call if you need help. And, you know, previously, I guess to answer your question earlier about the surprise, that is a surprising thing, because previously we've had kids come up and say, you were at my house on the weekend and, you know, this and this happened or whatever. But to know that they can trust us, it has happened quickly, and it's pretty cool.
Those sorts of things that the kids are paying long-term benefits. What about short-term benefits? From a boots-on-the-ground perspective that you've got, is it a safer place now than it was 3 months ago?
You know, I don't know statistically, but it certainly feels that way to me. Feels like a great place. So.
How so? How does it feel better? In what respect?
But just, I guess, the sense of community, just talking to people. It just feels like a friendly place to chat and hang out. So.
How has that changed, though, from when you first arrived, I wonder?
I guess it's just, there's always been that, right? I mean, Forest Lawn's a great community, and there's always been a lot of people that have lived there a long time and love their community, but I guess just the hope would be that there'd be more and more of that, right? More and more of that. So.
Can you just to get back to that trust element, I wonder, when you know, it's only been a couple months, but when you were first on the ground there, what was the sense you got? I mean, how were people reacting to you, and how has that changed?
I think initially there was a bit of confusion, like why are there so many police officers here and what are they doing? We had, through the summer, we had support from a number of other areas, like you heard with bylaw and transit stuff, but also within the Calgary Police Service, so our traffic section and our mounted patrol members and stuff. And I watched people look out their windows wondering why there was a horse walking down 17th Avenue. But then people slowly started to come and talk to us and to the police officers on horseback as well, and it just made them more and more.
Kev's got some good stories.
Absolutely.
Because we want to make it a little more informal than a Q&A like this. So like I was saying, in the old days, we used to sit around a big table and just chat. So, I mean, Kev's
Perfect.
the one that's got some really good anecdotal stuff with a lot of the kids that he's dealt with. So feel free, like it's going to be more informal. If we're jumping in back and forth, it really is more for the discussion, so as you have that information. So Kev, go ahead.
So here's the thing, and I got it because I really like the old meetings we used to have. Like Kevin said, we were in a circle, and when we wanted to talk about something, for instance, when we rolled out the continuum a few years ago, we sat around at a table. It was great. It was a great conversation because you guys asked good questions. And you know what I hate in too often when it's this format, you guys are used to having to ask the question that drags the information out from us, right? I mean, that's what it is, right? What question is going to drag out that one piece of information, you know? Well, the reality is, this is about talking about something that I think is meaningful to everybody in the room. And so rather than parade everybody up one at a time, it's probably best just to let it flow. Just ask the questions, and, you know, people contribute. And that includes you, Jillian, and it includes you, Leah, Dale. Because it's really, there's that one question, there's a couple of questions. One is the dislocation thing. Yeah, that's a really good question. And I got my own thoughts on that, but these guys are the experts. But the real question is, how's it changed? What's changed? And I've been kept in the loop on this because it's one of my pet projects. And there are things that when you hear stories, and that's why it's important that you guys have to tell those stories, because in a short period of time, some of those stories have been absolutely, in my mind, amazing as it relates to taking the police to a different level in the community where there's the trust and where they see us as being more. So, sorry, but you know what? It just makes more sense to have this as kind of a freewheeling, open, throw out a question, ask a question, and get the answer from the experts rather than wait, you know, have us sitting in the wings waiting our turn to come up and retroactively answer a question.
The other thing, guys, I know you're wired in, so you're getting the best audio from there. We can do one-on-one interviews right after. And so if they just talk about it and you go, hey, I want to follow up on that, just let us know and we'll set up whatever interview you want. So, Kev, go tell us that couple stories that you do.
So it actually ties right in with one of your questions there. I'm Constable Kevin Collier. I've been lucky enough to be part of the beat right from when we started in June, and then stood up fully in July, or we came into fruition, I guess, fully in July with the whole team coming into place. And I've worked in Forest Lawn for 7 years. It's the only area that I've ever worked for district, and I love the area. It's got a lot of great people in it. It's got a a whole ton of areas that you just don't get a lot of interactions with the people that you get when you're on the beat. So walking through the beat, I got to see a whole different side to the area that I've never seen before in the other 7 years that I've policed the area. People will come up and introduce themselves to you. Going into the businesses the first times, people are like, oh, did someone call you? And then as, you know, kind of, it didn't even take that long. It really took about 2 weeks before you could start going into the businesses, and they'd just say hi and realize that you were just there to check on how their day was going, and they'd start telling you if there was problems in the area or different things that were ongoing. If there was someone that was habitually shoplifting, that type of stuff, then they were just telling you about it, and you were able to come by and help them out. Over the last 2.5 months since all the members joined the Beats, we've been lucky that as we go along, we've been getting that positive feedback because we stop in those businesses every day. So there's a lot of the businesses where employees now feel safer going to their cars, coming to them from work. They've said they've noticed a decrease in the amount of shopliftings. I don't have the statistics to say if there's been a decrease, but just the feedback from the business owners, from the people that are working there. They've seen a decrease in the stuff that they would call the disorder that is in the area that kind of made them not too comfortable in the area, and we can't walk for any period of time without having at least one family come up and approach us and say thank you for being out there, and they'll bring out their kids and introduce them to you. The biggest kind of adjustment that I noticed, and just kind of how fast it happened, is August 18th when Patrick Airley went back into place, or back into school for the year. We showed up on the first day, and I'm not going to go into the different stuff that we found, you know, and picked up, because that's really gross. It's the best way to put it. It's pretty gross, but you know, it's just stuff that shouldn't be around when kids are trying to go to a school and learn. So we had 5 members the first day that we were out there, and to be fair, you know, we got some pretty sideways looks, and I'd probably do the same thing if I was going to school and dropping my kid off and there was a bunch of cops standing in my playground. I'd be wondering what's going on. So the first day, you know, we didn't have a whole lot of interaction. People didn't really come up and approach us. But then by day 2, we had the teachers were talking to us a little more. They were aware of the programs and different things that were going in place and why we were in the schools. And a couple of the parents were coming up. But by day 3 of my officers and I walking around and picking up garbage and taking that vested interest into the school and into their children, we were approached by some of the parents that volunteered to set up a garbage cleanup with just the parents in the morning and do a sweep. And there's been less garbage ever since, so I don't know if they're doing it in the evenings or what, but I haven't been finding the same type of stuff that I was finding when I first started doing the garbage cleanups. By day 4, we had parents bringing up their kids that weren't even in the schools, that were just coming to drop off their older siblings, and they were coming up and introducing them to us and saying, these are the people that if you need help, you can come contact the Calgary Police. These are the guys you go to if you need help. And then, so the kids were still a little standoffish, right? It's the first week of the program and of us being in their school. But by the 5th day, the kids were, you know, bringing over a soccer ball and asking us to go play soccer with them. When we go and interact with them, they were trying to teach us new games. They were trying to get us involved in foot chases, stuff like that, or races, sorry, not chases. Old habits. But trying to get us involved in races, and so the kids, you know, the kids were approaching us and they were involving us into their school community and into their greater community that branches out into. And just that whole reception that we felt for the members that are out walking, by the community, by the businesses, by the schools, and those individual communities that are there, we feel like we've been welcomed into the community. People will just stop and talk to us, right? And so we look forward to, as that progresses, being involved in those communities and being a part of that community, taking that vested interest, and, you know, doing those other little things like going and picking up that garbage and stuff that shouldn't be around a playground, right, if it's not picked up. So, yeah.
I'm just wondering if this is a permanent fixture now, and if it's not, without it, do you see things slipping back? I'm looking at some of the stats, the crime stats, and some of the numbers that you've given us here, and they seem to, in some cases, they seem to be down quite a bit. I'm just wondering if this isn't kept up, do you think it could go back to where we were before?
Yeah, and it will. That's exactly what will happen. You know, the traditional police role, and you'll remember because you've been around for it. We put together a task force. The task force goes out, it does something, and then we clean up the whatever it is we're cleaning up, and then we leave. And the bad guys know we leave, and they just sit back and wait. And then as soon as the cops are gone, they set up shop again, and it's business as usual. When we last 3-year business plan and budget that we did, we said number one priority, we have to clean up the downtown because of the mess that it was. And then we said, but as we get into year 3, and we would be expanding our approach into other areas. And so our commitment to City Council 3 years ago was to take our growth positions and commit them to this initiative. So these are permanent initiatives. So short of a significant budget cut coming down the pike from some level of government, they're permanent. They are part of the 4-district strength, and they will be there forever. And so we're not going to create this environment of safety, and then once we determine that it's safe, remove them, and then let things slide back like it's been done in the past. So this is permanent. And you know, they've been talking a lot about the interaction on day shift, but imagine this: if you've got a kid in school, and your kid has literally, this is, I mean, they would be guys trafficking on the streets in front of the school, trafficking drugs that kids would have to go buy on the way to school. Well, that isn't happening anymore. And ask yourself the question: would you put up with it in your community? The answer is no, right? So no, we're not here for the short term. We're in here for the long term. And I think building trust goes 2 ways. One, the initial contact, that builds trust, but trust that you're going to be there into the future is also a big deal. And that's what our commitment is. We will be there into the future. Maybe not Kevin, he'll probably wind up getting promoted and doing something wonderful down the road, but you know, we will have those positions set aside. They're there, they're on permanent strength.
So what can you tell us about some of the figures, some of the numbers in this release here? I mean, what is the significance of those?
Of the numbers? Oh yeah, you know what? That just indicates that that they're out there doing their job. You know, they're out there doing their job. That's what it's. What really is going to, when we look at the way that we capture data, part of it is statistical because StatsCan says we've got to capture data a certain way. But there's only a few things that we measure that matter. And one of those is when we do a survey, or the city does a survey, the police commission, that asks people, do you feel safer in your community? Do you feel that you can walk around at night and feel safe? Do you feel that, all that kind of stuff? Those are the measures that matter. And what we're going to find is already I think, what you're saying and what you're saying, what Kevin and Phil are saying is that they're already getting that from people. You know, my favorite story, and I'm sorry if I take the thunder out of you. Just tell me to shut up. Sure. Okay. Should we have a huddle?
Go for it. You're going for it.
My favorite story. You want to talk about measurements? Family violence is huge, right? It's a big thing in the community. Well, 2 of our beat officers were walking, doing alley checks one morning.
We get you do it tonight.
Sorry, stand beside me because I need you. I was just telling him when he's finished boring my arms, he's got to give them back to me. So anyhow, so we got 2 of our beat officers, and it's day shift. It's morning, and they hear what sounds like a couple people yelling at each other, a disturbance at an alley. So they go down to the end of the alley. They find where, and it's a male. An adult, it's a dad. At least it looks like a dad, it looks like a mom, and it looks like these 2 little kids. And this guy is berating this woman, and the 2 little kids are sitting there taking it all in, right? And so this wasn't a call, they just heard it. So they went and they intervened, and the guy's all huffy and he's, you know, yipping, and you know how it is. Like an old-timers hockey fight, you know, blah, 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 as you start to back away. And so the guy disappears, and so the 2 beat officers take this young mom and the 2 kids, there's a coffee shop nearby, they take them for coffee. And the story is, and this comes from this woman, she says, I work. She said, he doesn't. I got 2 kids. I can't afford to pay for a babysitter. We couch surf with his buddies. We live here. Nobody, like, we're living there because they let us live there. So I'm not complaining, she says, but I have to earn money and I can't afford a babysitter and the kids make noise. And so they said in the house, get them out of here. We're trying to sleep. It's making too much noise. So here's my boyfriend, and she says, and I quote, he ain't great, but he's the best I've ever had. And he's mad because he wants to be in the house sleeping with his buddies, and somebody's got to look after these kids, and she's got to go to work. And I mean, imagine that's you, or your daughter, or your grandkids, or your kids. Think about that for a minute. So these two beat officers, on their own, kicked in the machine. They took her down to source, and they started the ball rolling as to bringing in those social agencies that are going to make a difference. That's the kind of an impact we're talking about. That would never have been a call for service. Never would have been a call for service. Instead, two officers, male and a female, walk in the alleys, hear the disturbance, and this is what they discover. And if you go back to that basic principle we talked about, the greatest impact you're ever going to have is when kids are this big. So, you know what? In answer to those questions, specific stories, already those stories. And how do you quantify that, Bill, in answer to your question? Will that ever show up on one of these stats? No. Nope. But you can never capture or count what doesn't happen. And what didn't happen was you could have prevented a family violence assault, a domestic assault. Who knows, maybe you've got these kids now involved in a path that's getting them into something that's a little more safer and secure, and you're giving that woman the opportunity to get herself established. Imagine trying to rely on what's the word I'm looking for? Imagine having to rely on somebody else who day to day determines if you can stay in their house. And then you've got two little kids like that. So that's the kind of impact these guys are having. Good.
If I could ask you one quick question, because you kind of
So they're
raised
permanent.
this as the concept. You mentioned earlier about it being permanent, well, at least as permanent as budgets are.
Yeah.
What is the budget for this? How much should it cost?
Whatever 16 bodies cost. It's 16 police officer positions, so those are part of our growth positions so I'd have to say that probably we cost them out. I'd say probably the cost of this would be, when you factor everything in there, including benefits and all that other kind of stuff, it's probably about a $1.6 million to $2 million project or initiative, or the cost of 16 police officers would be about $1.6 million is what it would be.
Can you reiterate the future of this program? Because it wasn't on mic, I know. But is this here to stay? How do you think this program is going, honestly, and what's its future?
This BEAT initiative is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. How it's deployed will be up to the inspector of the district. He deploys as to need, but there are 16 BEAT officers that are deployed to the International Avenue, and those positions are in the base budget, and they're here to stay.
Chief, are there other areas of the city that could benefit from something like this? And are you
Yeah.
What areas?
You know what, Jeremy, that's a really good question too. Absolutely there is. Absolutely there is. I mean, the reality is, as a police service, we have to respond to calls for service 24/7. This is a growing city. It grows by 30,000 people a year. I mean, we're stretched just to respond to calls. So this is a separate piece. And there's areas that could absolutely benefit by expanding a program like this. 36th Street, for instance, further up the 36th Street corridor. That we've talked about many times. If you look at expanding further into the Beltline, 17th Avenue West, we're talking about places like, beyond Kensington and beyond in that area. There are different issues, but foot patrols are without a doubt the best way to deliver policing services because it's pure interaction with the community. Call response is call response. That's when you go from call to call to call to call, and our officers do a great job. But you can never build those bridges with the community in the way that you can when you run beats like this. So we still, and by the way, just to make a point, we of the 10 major cities in Canada, we're still 8th cheapest. We still have less cops serving more people than 8 out of 10 other big cities in Canada. The only two that have less cops per pop is Ottawa, where they don't count the RCMP as part of the policing ratio, and Quebec City. So we still are ratio cop to pop. We have less cops serving more people than virtually any other big city in Canada. So it's still cost effective. What we're doing is cost effective. And we've got some of the lowest, our crime rate drops in the last few years have been greater than any big city in this country, as you saw through the Stats Canada report just a few months ago.